Welcome to the automation area inside of Herefish. Automations is where you build out your campaigns and use cases and decide which steps you'd like individuals, submissions, or placements or jobs to go through. Just want to give you an idea of this automation overview page before we get into the specific building out of automations and options. So here on the overview, this is the list view, which we're currently in. You'll see all your active automations, which you can see under the status column. You get the automation name, some general information about each automation and how it's constructed. The automation groups, you have the ability to create tags or groups so that you can view and kind of segment out your automations if you want to quickly go between different views and vantage points. And then you also have the ability to take these selected actions for individual automations, or if you select multiple options, you can do multi or group actions as well. So all your active automations will display, and then your paused automations will display below that. Underneath each automation, you'll get what type of automation it is with the correct color indication to indicate which it is. You can also keyword search your automations. So if you have a lot of automations, you can perform a search to figure out which ones you want to kind of edit, configure, or bring about. So this is the list view of an automation. Also, the nice thing for each individual automation, you'll notice this little binocular at the end of the name. If you click that, you'll get a preview of what the automation is doing. So you'll see all of the steps that are inside the automation, and you'll see that the lists that are included inside of it. And if you hit view, it would take you inside of the automation, and you can see specifically what is built inside of there. We also have a map view, which provides a more visual representation of the automations that you've created. So here you'll see kind of stages, which we have some pre-populated ones, but you're able to create and edit your own if you like. And then you can move automations around inside and outside between the stages if you like. So you can add additional automations to it. You can keyword search to add those. You can remove them if you like. And again, you can add and create your own stages, and you can tie it into the groups that you've created, which can make it nice. Then you're able to configure by moving up or moving down, which the order that you'd like to display. So this can be a great element to see visually what you have built, where opportunities are that you could automate more around. So going back to the list view here, we're going to get into how you actually build out automations. So this top right corner, the add automation button, if we click that, we have some options. So we can always build automations from scratch, so from the ground up, but we also have these automation blueprints, which are pre-populated automations that you can use to get something built out very quickly. So you can scroll through these, and they're all, again, color-coded and labeled to kind of which type of automation or which part of the process. You can also keyword search, or you can filter with these groups and tabs up top. When you select an automation blueprint, it'll give you a preview, kind of a little description of what it's accomplishing. It'll also preview the automation steps, the list that's going to get created for you. And then when you hit save, everything will populate inside of the blueprint. So it becomes a powerful way to quickly kind of build things out. The content inside of each blueprint will get customized based on how you have your company settings set up in the settings area of Herefish. But one click of a button, you can have an entire automation complete and built, in many cases content included. And of course, you can always go in, edit, and configure the automation and timing differently if you like. For our purposes here, we're just going to go through a few blank automation examples, just giving an idea of some of the possibilities. So your first choice when creating an automation is choosing what type of automation you want to create. So this mirrors the same choice that you have when you're building out lists. So you're choosing what or who is going to pass through the automation. So you have candidate and sales contact based automations, which go to those appropriate parties. And you have submission, placement, and job based automations, which you'd have the specific submissions, placements, or jobs flow through. So we're going to start with a candidate based automation. We'll go through some additional examples. But once you've chosen what type of automation you want to create, you'll get to this area where you can name your automation, and then you're choosing what kind of automation you want to build. So a standard type automation is going to be, as soon as you turn the automation on, whomever or whatever is in the list will flow from the top of the automation to the bottom as you've built out your steps. The center on date field option will trigger around a specific date that's enabled in the type of automation. And then everything that's occurring within the automation is going to go out relative to that date. So depending on what type of automation you're in, you're going to have different options. We're in a candidate-based automation, so we're going to have date available, birthday, appointment date, and then we can specify which appointment. But then we can also do a fixed date where we just pick a period of time. So that can be helpful if you want to send out holiday messages or things that need to go out certain times of the month. You can use that fixed date concept to do that. We're going to start with a standard, go through our steps, but we'll get back to the center on date field as we go here. So we hit save. It's going to bring us to the overview area of the new automation that we've created. This will bring us to the individual automation overview page. So here, this top portion, the automation enrollment, this is where you enter in your list logic and kind of identify who or what you want to flow through this automation. So this is a standard type automation. So everything that we build is going to be done through this little plus button in the middle of the screen. So here are your steps that are available inside of an automation. And these will vary slightly depending upon the type of automation you're in. So a wait step is how you put a period of time into play. So we'll just call that 3 weeks. We'll just enter it there. And these blue steps, the send email, send survey, send text, those are examples of outbound communication. So that would go outbound to the candidate in this instance. You have the ability to kind of customize with emails. You can do rich text, plain text, copy from a template, copy from an existing email that's already been created inside of Herefish. You even can A/B test directly inside of an automation, which is nice. Send text message would be a SMS campaign. So you can send that out from scratch or an existing message. We'll just put a kind of a wait step in here just to give you an idea of what the sequencing, how you can do this. So those are examples of the outbound. And the survey, you can send that either via an email or text. These yellow would be kind of inbound, so sending a notification or adding a task. The notification that would route internally, so it's kind of best used for alerts or reminders, and you have kind of control over who you want that to send to. And then a task would create a bullhorn task for someone that you specify. The purple options here are going to put information directly into the database. So the note would put a note on the candidate record in this instance, but depending upon the type of automation you're in, you'd have additional options. So if you're in the sales contact, it'd put the note on the sales contact, for example. Then the update candidate feature, you can choose, you can set a field value, copy or clear. You have a bunch of fields that you can update through automation, and you can choose kind of the appropriate value that you want to create. And then the last option you have when you're at the lowest point within an automation is you can end an automation. So with a standard automation, as soon as you turn it on, so by default, when you create an automation, it always is paused. It's impossible to create or inadvertently turn on an automation, which is a nice feature. So as soon as you were to turn this automation on, whomever is in the list logic would flow from the top to the bottom of the automation. So what we've built out quickly here is the first step would be a wait step for 3 weeks. So day 1, they'd go into this wait step for 3 weeks. As we can see, day 22, they would get sent an email. Day 29, they then get sent a text message, and the update candidate step would occur, and then the automation would end. So that's how you build out your standard automations from top to bottom. So to turn on an automation, you would come up to this turn on big green button, turn on automation. said it's impossible to inadvertently turn on an automation, because as soon as you hit that button, you'll get a prompt saying, "Are you sure?" If you said yes, then it would start flowing anybody that's in the enrollment logic area. The view metrics, this allows you to take a look at what's occurring inside per automation detail. So you can see some email statistics and rates, and then also clicks, page views, or job views that are originating from activity inside this automation. Automation settings up in the top right corner. Here you have the ability to rename your automation, so you can change your naming conventions if you like over time. The second and third area here is the send schedule. So this controls outbound messages only for automations. The highlighted days, so Monday through Friday in this instance, are days of the week in which messages can send. And then you also can specify specifically what time as well. So it's really important concept for a standard automation with an always updated list. Each time that we're syncing with your database, so hourly, you could have new people getting added, people getting taken off. So you could have people getting added and starting an automation virtually all time of the day or night. So you'd want to make sure that messages aren't going out, if you're concerned about not messaging people during certain times. So if a message were to hit an outbound step outside of this, so say Sunday at 2 o'clock in the morning, what would occur is the message would remain at that step ready to send until the first opportunity for it to send, which would be Monday at 9:30 in the morning. So this way you can control kind of the time parameters in the send window when messages are going out, so you don't send things inadvertently at wrong times. The next setting here is what happens if the candidates or things no longer match the lists that are pulling into the automation, or they match a suppression list that's pulling people out of the automation. So here you can have them get removed from the automation. You can have them continue through the automation like nothing happened, or you can pause them until they match the combined list criteria again. So each has kind of a different use case you can utilize them for. The staggered start, this allows you to break up large segments and lists into smaller, more manageable items. We don't have an issue with sending large amounts of messages out, but the responses coming back from them might be overwhelming. So you might want to stagger things out. So if you want to, you just enable this feature. You enter in the number of groups that you want to divide the number of people into. So say that you have 400,000 people that are coming into an automation. Again, we could have that trigger and flow through, but the response rate, even if it's low, might still get overwhelming. And the last thing you want to do when you're reaching out to a bunch of candidates is not be able to handle the responses coming back in. So you could break that out into 20 even groups. So then we would divide that 400,000 candidates into 20 even groups, so approximately 20,000 candidates per group. And then each day, a new group would get released. So 20,000 candidates would flow through the automation each day for a 20-day period. By default, candidates or whatever your automation is, they can only go through an automation one time in their life cycle with you. So if that's your intention, you can leave that kind of alone, and that's going to function the way you want to. If you want to create something that allows candidates to loop back in, if they match their criteria later in the future. So for example, if you want to do, an interview confirmation on the candidate side, if you want to do something onboarding related on the candidate side, and that's an example, you'd want to do that for each time that they match it, even if it's in the future. You can use this candidates can re-enter automation, and then you can specify what period of time that you want to allow somebody back in. So another example of that is, say you haven't spoken with a candidate in a while and you want to re-engage them. That might be an automation that you want to bring them back in if later in the future you also kind of lose and you want to re-engage them again. So something you can enable there. And then this last section, last setting is the allow duplicate option. So we bring in your duplicate values automatically, and then per automation, you can allow either duplicates to be able to come in, or if this is not selected, which is the default for candidate and sales-based automations, it wouldn't allow duplicates to be able to come through the automation if the other duplicate is inside of it. And then you can also hit this little trash icon, bottom left-hand corner, if you want to delete an automation right within it. So that is the standard type of automation, of how you would build that out and how that would work. Let's give an example of a date-based automation. So we're going to build from blank again. Here, we're going to go to a placement-based campaign. So with placement and submission-based campaigns, we're just going to call this placement-based automation example. So we're going to center on a date field. And again, we see different end kind of relative dates that we can pick. We'll pick an end date here. And then with a submission and placement-based campaign, you're going to pick, do you want the candidate that's associated to the submission or placement or the sales contact? We'll do the candidate side. So as we get inside of a date-based automation, it's going to look similar in a lot of ways. But the big difference is in the middle of the automation, you're going to have the date trigger. And then everything that you're building inside of it is going to be relative to that date. So as you can see here, we have things that are occurring before the end date. And we can go in here and edit this. All right, so we can make that 4 weeks before the end date. And then you'd be putting your steps or your communications in below this. So say we wanted to send an email to a candidate 4 weeks before their end date. That's when that would go out. And again, you can see the time span over on the left-hand side. And then you can do things on the end date. So that'd be here. You just put, so we want to send a text message when they've actually ended. And then you can add in additional steps here, said before, after, or on. So say you want to do after, 10 days after, you might want to have something go out. So that's how you build out these date-based automations. Now, the nice part is with these messages are tied specifically to this date, and they're only going to go out if, in this case, the placement that's going through it matches at that time. And let's just go back. Back button accidentally. I'll go back into that automation. So it's only going to go out if the placement matches that specific time frame. So if, for example, a placement were in this automation from 5 years ago, none of these messages will go out because all of these time periods have since passed and will never come again in the future. So this is kind of an interesting aspect with the date-based triggers. It only goes out when they match. Now the list logic area, this is a kind of an interesting, this is where you bring in the individuals inside of an automation. So you can create a brand new list from scratch. It'll look just like the list view as you're bringing it out, or you can select your existing lists that you've already created. And you can have as many of these on here as you like. So what we do is we look at all the lists in totality, and we get the unique placements, candidates, whatever type of automation it is that match that. So if you had 5 lists that were pulling into this automation and a placement was on 3 of those lists, that placement's still only going to be in the automation 1 time because it matches the totality. It's a unique placement in the totality of lists. So that's kind of the included list aspect of an automation. You can also do suppression lists. So suppression lists would be if someone's on a suppression list, they're not allowed to come inside of an automation, no matter what. So if you get on a suppression list, you're not allowed to be in the automation, even if you're on lists that are pulling in. So you can always come into this automation enrollment area to edit, move things around, and you just hit this red X if you want to delete things. And you just hit save, and you'll get your lists that are pulling in. You get a little preview of how many match your criteria. You get the little eye icon to find out more information. And again, same concept with the standard automation. You can turn it on with that. So those are the 2 types of automations and how you build out your sequences inside of Herefish.